Okay, hello. There's always technical issues, but we are now here. So, hello, I'm Heidi, for those who don't know. So I get to talk about food, always the best bit of running, let's be honest. That's why I got into running. So I want to do a little bit of a practical guide today, just to give you some hints and tips on how to fuel your own training, whatever distance you may be doing. Whether you're not running a race, it doesn't matter. Hopefully you'll take something useful from this talk. Okay, so my first point to make is the fact that in nutrition, no one size fits all. I like eating different things to what you guys might like eating. There is no one diet that you must follow. So my talk today is essentially, what does the science tell us that we should eat in order to fuel our training? And therefore you take that and you apply it to what you like to eat to fuel your own experiences. Okay, so don't worry if you're sat there going, but I don't want to eat that, because it doesn't matter. It's about what you like to eat. Fit the science in with that. Okay, so why does our body need food? Most importantly, we of course need energy. Okay, these are the different components of what our body needs energy for. The largest part is what we need to just power all of our body processes every day. Lungs, brain, heart, all of those types of things forms the largest portion of our energy usage. Then we come on to movement. That is split into structured exercise, so that's your runs, your swims, your gym sessions, but also just you walking from the car park to get here today, you climbing the stairs, all of those little movements you do throughout the day, which you don't necessarily think of as being exercise. And then the smallest portion at the top, that is the energy that our body uses to process the food that we eat. And all of that adds up to be the total daily energy expenditure. Now, my graphics are all going to be odd because we're on Johnny's laptop, but don't worry. So energy availability, just want to touch on it very briefly. If you do a high amount of exercise, your energy burn or energy usage is also going to be high. So you need to make sure that you are still providing your body with enough energy for this section down the bottom. So if you eat 2,000 calories a day, sounds like a healthy amount, no issues there. But if you burn 1,000 calories, because it's your long run day, suddenly you've only left yourself 1,000 calories for this bit down the bottom, which is not enough. So that would mean you have low energy availability. So it's just a point, everybody is very, very individual in terms of how much energy they need, how much energy they burn, but it's just a note to say, you've got to make sure that you're taking into account not only what you're burning through exercise, but what your body needs, even if you were to just sit in bed all day. So, how do we fuel it? Carbohydrates, the favourite bit, the bread, the pasta, the carb loading, okay? It is the body's preferred energy source during exercise, okay? It's going to be a bit numbersy, but check on YouTube afterwards if you want to get the exact numbers for yourself. But this gives you an overview of how many carbohydrates you should be eating depending on your training session. And that can change day to day. So on a rest day, perhaps you don't need so many carbohydrates, but then on a long run day, you would need more carbohydrates, okay? So the numbers on the side, this is the grams per kilogram of body weight. So it's all individualized to you. I can go on and on about which types of foods to eat, but just you need to think about what's the fiber content of your carbohydrates and also what's the sugar content of your carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are sugar, but it depends on how your body processes it. So if something tastes sweet and it's a carbohydrate, then it's going to spike your blood sugar quicker than if it's a carbohydrate that doesn't taste sweet and has a lot of fiber. I won't go into it, but it's just things to consider when you're picking your carbohydrate choices. Then we talk about protein, okay? Again, we think of bodybuilding, we think of strength training, but it they do form the building blocks for most of your body structures. You cannot adapt to your training stimulus without sufficient protein. You can't make new cells, you can't make new mitochondria, you can't make new muscle mass, you can't repair bone. So it is really, really crucial that even for runners who don't think, I don't want to get bulky, I don't need protein shakes, it doesn't matter about that, but you need to make sure you are getting enough. So this is the recommendation, so 1 to 1.6 grams per kilogram of body weight per day. I wouldn't go any lower than this, but you can definitely go higher than this, and that is generally safe for people unless they have a health condition. And the recommendation is that we split it up into smaller portions throughout your day. Don't just save it all till your evening meal, okay? The body responds better when it gets little bits of protein at regular intervals. So it takes a bit of time to think about it, but every meal that you have, how can you make it high protein? If we're going to put it all together, so what does it look like in terms of a day of eating? I've picked a 70 kilogram runner who's going to have 6 grams of carbs per body weight per day and 1.6 grams of protein. It could look like this, okay? So we've got granola, fruit juice and milk for breakfast. Then lunch, we've got a nice couscous salad with some fruit, tofu and granola bars. For a snack, we've got a good old hot cross bun, because it's Easter, and then a tuna bagel. For dinner, we've got a nice big bowl of pasta, vegetables and chicken. And then for an evening snack, we've got some crackers, orange juice and grapes. That would fit, for this individual, their carb and their protein requirements. Hopefully that doesn't look too bad. And look, I've only had technically a tiny bit of bread in there. So anyone that goes, oh, I don't like eating bread, ta-da, there's your cups. Don't forget your fruit juices, okay? Really nice way to get carbs into your diet if you don't particularly like eating the sort of heavier carbohydrates, okay? Fats, alrighty. So they are essential for many bodily processes. We do need fat in our diet. Hair, skin, cell membranes, hormones, all of those things need a lot of the healthy fats that we get from our nuts, our seeds, avocados, oily fish. And we all know the bad fats, okay? The cakes, the crisps, the biscuits, the stuff that tastes good. And it's kind of the reason why a lot of us do running. But for the healthy side of things, this is what you want to fill your diet with in terms of your fats, okay? So, some of you may have come across the debate in exercise nutrition in terms of using fat as a fuel. Pros, you store a lot more fat than you do carbohydrate. In fact, you store about 50 times more fat than you do carbs. So an average human can store about 1,900 calories worth of carbs. So if you think how many calories you burn in a run, that's how many carbs you store. But equivalently, we can store 100,000 calories in fat for an average person. So the question is, well, if we store so much fat, can't we try and adapt to using it as a fuel? Because then surely we could just keep running and running and running and running. So this is the theory that, through training, we can make our bodies better at using fat as a fuel, which means we're then sparing our glycogen, which is our carbohydrate stores, and technically, we should be able to keep exercising for a lot longer. Sounds pretty good, right? Everyone's thinking, oh my God, yeah, I need to do this training, this is great. However, the body is much less efficient at using fat as a fuel when we get to our higher intensities. So right now, your body will mostly be using fat to fuel your body processes. But as soon as we go out there and start doing a run, our body goes, I can't produce enough energy quick enough from fat, so I'm going to turn to carbohydrates. And they've done countless studies, and every single study to date, I'm sure at some point science will go around the next bend, but we currently have no performance benefits seen in those individuals who try to promote fat usage rather than carbohydrate usage. So I guess my take-home message is, for athletes, carbs are still king. Okay? Then we talk about water. It's very, very individual. So it can be influenced by a lot of different things, effort level, whether it's hot, whether it's humid, your sweat rate, how fit you are. So basically what I wanted to do was give you a bit of an overview. What could you do to help you know, without looking at numbers and how much you're drinking, if you're hydrated enough? So before exercise, make sure you start what we call hydrated, which means optimally hydrated. Quick test, go to the toilet, what colour's your urine? If it's pale or clear, great, you're doing well, you're hydrated. During exercise, drink little and often. Don't rely on thirst. If you feel thirsty, you probably do need to drink, but just because you don't feel thirsty doesn't mean you are optimally hydrated. So little and often, just keep sipping away. Don't drink masses because you will not feel great, but little and often will see you through. And then after exercise, that's when you really need to focus on rehydrating, but do it slowly over the course of 6 hours. Because if you suddenly consume a load of plain water, you actually dilute your salts in your body, and that can have really, really serious consequences. So then we kind of talk about electrolytes, things like that. Again, we can go into that in the future, but you need to consider whether, particularly on a hot day, can you be taking on electrolytes either before, during, or after your exercise to replenish those salts. So for more personalised volumes, you can look at your sweat rates, but that goes a little bit outside of what we do today, but everyone can calculate their own sweat rate at home. But if you focus on nailing your pre-exercise hydration and your post-exercise hydration, generally you don't have to worry too much about what's happening in the middle, unless, of course, it's a really, really hot day. Okay? So, what about races? The dreaded wall. Okay, so the general consensus of why we hit the wall is a multitude of different factors, but the main one being that our body has run out or is getting to the end of our carbohydrate stores, our glycogen stores. Remember I said there was about 1900 calories worth of carbohydrates stored in your body. Once you've used that up, your body has to use fat. So you haven't run out of fuel, but your body's going, I don't want to use fat because I can't keep going as fast. I need to slow down. Therefore, hitting the wall is your brain's way of saying, I think we should stop. Mentally, you're fatigued, your muscles are fatigued, you're running out of easy access fuel, so your body says, let's call it a day. Obviously, it's not great if you're trying to go past 20 miles. So how can we combat this? 2 ways. One is carb loading, and the second is mid-race fueling. So carb loading, personally my favourite bit of marathon training. Why would you not? So our aim for carb loading is we want to boost our glycogen stores. So this is the store of carbohydrates in our body. Okay, we want to try and optimise those, get them as plentiful as possible so that our body can keep using that as we keep running. The length and the volume of your carb loading will be dependent on how much you're running. We have about 90 minutes, give or take, worth of carbohydrate stores or energy stores in our body without carb loading. So if you're going to run a distance where you'll finish before 90 minutes, probably don't need to carb load, although it might help you. But certainly if you're going past the 90-minute mark, then you do need to carb load. So my tips, do plan ahead. I've done it before where I've suddenly got to the end of my day and I've thought, I've got all of these carbs to eat and it's a real slog and suddenly carb loading's no fun. But I've also had training blocks where I've planned from the start of my day and I honestly get to the end of the day and go, kind of wanted some more carbs because I've planned it well, so it hasn't felt like I'm eating lots. Make sure you drink more water. For every 1 gram of carbohydrate that your body stores, you store 3 grams of water, okay? Just how the body works. So do make sure you're hydrated. And also, that comes into the pre-race hydration point. And then, of course, you do also want to reduce your exercise. When you exercise, your body's going to use the carbohydrates that are stored in your muscles, but you're also trying to top them up. So that's why in our final marathon week, we want to make sure our exercise is low. We're topping up those stores by eating a lot, therefore we don't want to waste it by then exercising. And plus you need to relax before your race anyway. Don't leave it till the night before. So many new runners, hopefully no one in this room, has waited till the night before the marathon or the race and eaten a load of pasta. And then they feel horrible that night, they feel horrible in the morning, and they think, carb loading's rubbish. But you need to plan ahead. And don't eat more total calories. What you do is you just shift the calories you would have eaten from protein and fat, and you shift them into carbohydrates. So you're not suddenly eating loads more food, it's just that more of your food is coming from carbohydrates. And think back to my comment about the water, don't step on the scales. You won't like it, you won't like the results, and it's not helpful. Yes, you will put on weight, but you are not putting on body fat, okay? Once you've done your race and you've drained all those glycogen stores, you're going to be back to normal weight, maybe even less, okay? So don't worry about what the scales say. There's lots of different ways to carb load, and again, it will depend on what race you're doing, but here are two suggestions. So if you know the total calories that you eat in a day, you can just shift your percentage towards carbohydrates. So by one day out from your race, you're eating 90% carbs, okay? You sort of look at a piece of chicken and think, I can't eat even one bit of that. Or if you don't know how many calories you eat per day, then you can go for grams per body weight. And if you already eat a lot of carbs, then you might need to shift that. For me personally, I work out what this is, and I work out what this is, and I take somewhere in between. So I find what works for me, okay? So race day, my last little bit. On your race morning, you want 1 to 4 grams of carbs per kilo of body weight, 2 to 4 hours pre-race. That's quite a big range, but the aim of that is that if you are really nervous and you can't eat much race morning, aim for 1 gram. And if you can eat a lot and you're like, yeah, fuel me up, then aim for more 4. So for me, I could get away with just eating 60 grams of carbs, which isn't much, if I was feeling really nervous. But if I'm feeling a bit better, I'll try and go more for the 4 gram end. You're going to have very little fat and very little protein in that race day breakfast because they are not going to help you at this stage. We've proven the body isn't good at using these sources at high intensities, so don't bother. They're just going to sit in your stomach and not be helpful. And do not try anything new. Please do not try anything new. Even if it means bringing all your granola in a little baggie, okay, it's going to really help you out by not doing anything new. So, race. Lots of variations. I'm just telling you what the science tells us. This is optimal. If your race is short or your run is short, then you only need around 30 grams of carbs per hour. So depending on what gels you use, that might just be 1 gel per hour. If you're going to carry on running a little bit longer, then as you go through your race or your run, you're going to need a little bit more grams of carbs per hour because your body's going to be struggling to get it through the digestive system and into your bloodstream quick enough. So this is what I use. So on the first hour mark of my marathon, I take a gel. Hour 2, I take a gel. Then every half an hour after that, I take a gel. And then if I'm going to get a little bit longer into my race, then I'm going for every 20 minutes. But it's what works for you. This is best case. This is what science tells us, okay? But you've got to be happy on race day. Avoid eating fat as you run, because that can upset your stomach. There is a debate over using protein mid-race on ultra events, but for this case, don't worry too much about it. That's a discussion for another day. And then after exercise, make sure you top up those glycogen stores that you've depleted by eating around 1.2 grams of carbs per kilo of body weight every hour over the next 4 hours. You've just drained all of those stores, now you've got to refill them. And try and get some protein in within an hour of exercise as well. But most importantly, fuel well and enjoy it. It's supposed to be fun. Thank you very much.